I'm your host, Sharada Devi, of the Born to Be Free podcast that serves as a bridge between the ancient and the new era, a confluence of opposites where all is seen as sacred and every experience is meant to catapult you into your supreme destiny. Welcome, everyone. We are here for another episode of the Born to Be Free podcast. I'm Sharada Devi, your host, and you see, I have a big smile. I feel bellies in my butterfly. No, I feel butterflies in my belly and excitement in my heart because I have a very beautiful, powerful, sexy, wise goddess here. Her name is Meher Malik. We met 2 years ago through a dear common sister, Sylvia Savita Devi. They met in India during their somatic experiencing training. Or I'm not sure if Meher, you were facilitating there or part of the training or assisting or student, it doesn't really matter. But Sylvia was working with me for many years. And she said, like, you got to meet Meher and she will be amazing for our Navaratri online goddess festival that we've been organizing for 7-8 years. And she's like, Meher would be amazing to join. And she put us in touch. And I asked Meher if she would want to join. I saw she's a belly dancer, lived 17 years in the Middle East, is a somatic practitioner, breath worker, body worker into sensuality and sexuality, just a well of wisdom, of knowledge and embodiment and beauty. And she said, yes, I would be so excited and privileged and grateful to join. And she offered the most beautiful mandala. I don't remember exactly the name right now, but a beautiful mandala, Kundalini, sacred embodiment ritual, and everyone loved it. And now we're here back again for a podcast because I've seen her just rocking Mother India and sharing revolutionary tools and practices with women in India all over the world, opening the pelvis and opening the heart and liberating the voice. And I know, as I myself have been in India for many, many, many years, I've studied there for many years. My heart, I feel Indian to some part. My whole teaching background is Indian. My teachers are Indian. So I know it's not the same to do that work in India than doing it in Switzerland or in Sweden. It's very different. So I just said like, wow, yes, I'm celebrating you, what you're doing. And I'm so happy you're here today and looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Yeah. You're on tour right now, right? It's your last few days.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's the first time that I've been traveling on a multi-city tour with my mom and my daughter. And just witnessing my daughter transforming on the journey is such a powerful thing. It's amazing because children are like the closest embodiment to what it means to be present and what it means to be constantly changing.
Mm.
So, as much as I'm traveling for work and for the tour and for doing the things that I'm doing, what's actually more interesting for me is how she is transforming every single day. And that's really been fuel for me. It's been so, so beautiful to witness that.
Can you tell me? I would love to hear because, like, we're doing this for our daughters. We're doing it for ourselves first and foremost. But of course, you as a mother, everything is coming to her. So, what are you noticing in her, the changes and how she is blooming?
I think that one of the things that we believe about parenting is that we give our children permission to do things. But I think that for me, it's quite different. It's almost like my daughter gives me permission to do things.
Mm,
It's just by being who she is, super sensitive, super, receptive, just so supple and ready to embrace whatever is happening in the space. She gives me so much permission to step into an unlimited version of me, because when I see it and I witness her every single day, I go like, hey, I could also do that. I could learn from her. Instead of children always mirroring adults, if adults started to mirror children, they
mm,
would be able to retain all of those supple, juicy qualities that they keep doing all this. This is why we're doing the work we do, to stay supple, to stay juicy, to stay abundant, right? But like when I witness my daughter, I feel like I don't have to work for it. I feel like in just witnessing her, there's a permission to just be unlimited. I could be a different person every single day and she would still embrace it, you
mm,
know?
mm, mm,
And it's such an honor to witness and just to have a girl. There's something about being a mother to a girl where you have the opportunity to raise your own self since zero, So literally your everything, how you would want to express, how you would want to be able to say no earlier. But many of us learn to say no so late. I mean, at least for me, no came so late in my life, that I could say no. And to see a little 5.5-year-old girl who says, "Don't touch me this way, it's my body, I don't like it." For me, that is that's really the success of the work we're doing here as mother and child, as child and mother, because all the things that I had to wade through life to learn and have all these difficult challenges and abuse and violence and trauma and toxicity to understand, I think her journey started early because her mother also kind of opens a space for her and says, "Hey, you prioritize yourself first." And I wish that that was something that the system taught me, but it wasn't. So witnessing that happening in real time is really transforming my spiritual journey very, very deeply.
Wow, I have goosebumps all over my body. Yeah, yeah, wow. 5.5 years old she is only.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And is she joining? Like, is she actually in the room when you're initiating these women into opening the pelvis and breathing? Is she seeing
So
and
she
witnessing and participating or more?
So she goes to some of the smaller things, but
Yeah,
little children can't be like in a 3 hour, 4 hour session.
yeah,
They get
yeah,
anxious, like, they
yeah.
they lose attention span. And though she loves to attend, but she started to become super aware about what I do. So just on a train trip, like 2 days back, we were having a conversation about money, and she goes like, "Ah, why are you worried? Money is just gonna come." I'm like, "Oh, so it's just gonna come. I don't have to do anything for it." She's like, "No, like it's just gonna come." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, all right." And I was like, "Do you even know how I make my money and like how you're able to have the life that you have?" And she's like, "Yeah, you do online classes." I'm like, "Okay, what kind of online classes do I do?" And then she takes a moment and she goes, "Breath work." And I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "What happens in these breathwork sessions?" And then she says, "People cry." And she's like, "Ugh." And then I was like, "So is that like a good kind of cry or a bad kind of cry?" And she's like, "It's a good kind of cry." I was like, "Why?" She's like, "Because all your problems get solved after that." So she started to make some sense of what I do. She knows it's healing, and she knows that we're helping people. She knows that there's something happening here that supports people. That's something that
Mhm,
she's kind of like understood and figured.
mhm.
And she has now the tendency to like, a few days back, I was reading a story to her at bedtime and I was wearing my glasses. And after finishing the story, I started to cry because it was such a moving children's story. And then she takes out my glasses, she puts her hand on my heart and says, "Breathe now." And I was like, "Okay, I'm breathing." And she's like, "So now tell me, why were you crying?" And I was like, "I have a tiny space holder in the house."
Oh my goodness.
It's interesting. It's
Wow.
interesting.
Wow. 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 What a proud mama. Huh? It just explode your heart like when these moments like, okay, now you tell me what's going on, mama. Why you're crying? Yeah, yeah. And then you tell her what's happening in your
Yeah.
heart. Mm,
Yes, I tell
yeah.
her, and I think that also makes
Mm,
it also makes her feel like she can express to me,
mm,
something so, and I love like as a mother, a lot of what I do in even the spaces that I hold
mm,
is all through storytelling now because I've spent the last 5.5 years storytelling, and I've always loved story. I've always loved the ability to transmission a teaching through storytelling, and being with a child helps me do that even deeper. So
mm.
yesterday we were sitting at a restaurant and she kind of like looked at like a cupboard. It was like this place that were displaying some products, and she suddenly like closes her eyes and she gets really stiff and paranoid. And I'm like, "What's up? What happened?" She's like, "Just take me away from here. Just take me away from here." And I hold her and I take her away. And I was like, "Would you like to now tell me what happened?" She's like, "I saw some white eyes." And I was like, maybe she saw the reflection of the light in the mirror or something. I couldn't understand it at first. And then she went back to the same place and it happened a second time. And she like literally, her body like froze.
Uh,
Then, then I realized like there's something there that she's looking at. And then I went to that shelf in the restaurant, and behind the products was an old mask of the Buddha, an old mask of the Buddha with white eyes.
Mm,
So it was so beautiful. We went through the journey of understanding what was behind. We took her there, and then oh my God, she had such a big release. Like when she saw it, and her logical mind could like make sense of what it was, she just had such a release. Like you could tell that this is such an integrated process of feeling the fear, getting ready to face the fear, and then having a big emotional release when you face the fear.
mm.
You know, it's such a real time embodied experience. And then she celebrated it. Like she danced and she moved her body and she's like, yeah, it was just a mask. It was just a mask of the Buddha. And I'm like, yeah, she was it's such embodiment. It is such embodiment. It's such embodied living to witness the life of a child. So
Mm,
yeah.
Wow. Again, truth bumps. How beautiful. And then she goes and celebrates her experience. So she's 5.5. So how old were you when you got her?
I was 30, 30, between 30, 31.
30, 31. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And your mother was also, or is also with you on tour, you said, your mother and your child.
Yes.
And so you have
Yes.
your daughter and your mother. And how is it to have your mother with you? Is she participating or how does she receive your work and offerings?
So my mother has been an educator all her life. She's been educating children as a teacher all her life. And she has now, crossing 60, decided to stop working in school. And she says to me, she says that I believe that you've come to do very big things. And she says to me that I want to be in service to your vision.
Mm, mm,
So my mother is walking this path with me, now maybe less like a mother, maybe more like my child almost now,
mm,
where she's ready to serve this vision and she really feels like it's some maybe it's her gut, maybe it's her inner voice telling her that I'm probably going to walk a certain path a few years down the line
mm,
which I'm already on, but I can see it also transforming and the shape that it's taking at this current moment. And she just wants to be there to care for my daughter so that I can do my work. And she says that being with you, I believe that I will go back on my spiritual journey.
wow.
So having and she feels like she's done so much in the samsaric life, the life of family, the life of raising children, the life of having a career, that now she's feeling a super strong call to go on the spiritual path. And what's interesting is that my mother actually took sannyas when she was 18 years old. So
Wow.
she left with gurus. Her father gave her permission. She had those, the karao, the slippers with just that little thing in the middle between the first and the second toe. She was eating on the way like a bhikshu, and engaging in philosophical conversation every day until she had a disappointing experience with her guru, who then asked her to marry him. So my mother went back home saying that I took sannyas and I did not want to get married. So it's like she's had a reverse kind of situation. She started on the path of sannyas, but then went on to samsaric life because of the disappointment she experienced on her spiritual path.
Wow. Mm,
And now she's feeling ready. And now she's feeling ready to walk this path with
mm,
me. She says,
mm,
whenever you have, and she'll always say, whenever you have your ashram, this is what my
mhm,
mom says.
mhm.
She says,
An
whenever you
ashram,
have
for
your
those that don't know, an ashram is a sacred place for studies, sacred studies, devotional practices, living in community. Yeah.
and she always says that, she's already fantasizing these things even before me. And she says that whenever you have this ashram, this space, that I know you'll have one day, I would like to be the one in charge of the kitchen. So the food could be really, really nourishing for everybody, sattvic food. I was like, okay, mom, thank you.
Wow, 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 wow,
Yeah,
wow. What a grace. What a grace. Yeah.
truly,
Yeah.
truly.
Yeah. And so she knows like she's really able to receive because you're not only teaching sexuality, but spirituality, what you just mentioned, like that she's now coming onto the spiritual path. But a big topic for you now is also sexuality. And
Mm.
and sexuality is the topic. I mean, really, everything is actually about sex, right? Nobody wants to really acknowledge that, but it's all about sex. Like, all we do is because we
Yeah,
want to have sex. We want to merge. We want to come back to where we have come from, where there was oneness, and
yeah,
we
yeah,
disguise it in so many different ways. And the sexual reclamation is a radical path.
Hmm.
And
Really.
how is that, like you being Indian, growing up in the Middle East from Indian parents? How is that for you, walking this path of spirituality and sexuality?
So something that I often talk about in like interviews and, public spaces is that my father was the one to gift me the Kama Sutra when I was 14 years old. It was my father. And I truly believe that we keep talking about how we do sister work, we do work with women, spaces that women support women. But when a man, I believe when a man is concerned and deeply cares for the sexual liberation of a woman, that I believe can be so, so medicinal. And for me, my mother actually comes from a Christian education. So she was convent educated.
Mm,
So her thought process was you find one guy, you fall in love with him, you make babies with him, it's like that's her education. And this was before she took the sannyas and came to family life. So she has had a very Puritan kind of idea about sexuality and relationships and marriage and things like that. For the early part of my life, this is what I understood from my mother, and I found it quite limiting. I found it quite contracted. Not because I don't believe in union, but because it came from a lot of, oh, you can't do that thing because it's not good, it's dirty, that's not okay. It's like not a good thing to do. But my father, on the other hand, was such a liberated person that when I told him that I'm very curious to understand about sex and I want to know more, the only premise was get good grades in school and I'll buy you the Kama Sutra. And I was like, okay, perfect, thank you. And so my father was the one who initiated me on the path of women who run with the wolves, Khalil Gibran, Kama Sutra. This is all my father.
And
My
what is
early
his
teenage.
spiritual religious background?
Honestly, he's not
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't say he's a practitioner in the conventional way at all.
Okay, yeah.
But my father has a very, very has spiritual resilience.
Mm,
And I find his qualities to be very deeply spiritual, even without having a path, even
mm,
without following a guru or a set system. He seems to have a lot of qualities that a lot of the people I meet in spiritual communities also don't have.
mm,
Everything from consistency to keeping his word to keeping his heart open to being generous to being compassionate. These are a lot of the things you don't even see people who do the work
mm,
inculcated in them. Very often you don't see those things. And I find these to be very deeply spiritual qualities. So he has a different journey with this, but he doesn't necessarily have a very active
mm,
spiritual lineage or a spiritual path. His father, and I think the seed is probably in him because of his father, because his father was very deeply into spiritual practice, social service, doing for community. So I think my father learned all this just by witnessing. He didn't
mm,
follow our path, but I think he imbibed it because of witnessing his own father,
mm, mm,
you
mm.
know? So yeah, so for me
And
it's
so how
been
come
it's
he invited you into Women Who Run with the Wolves and the Kama Sutra? So he knew about all of it. And
Yeah,
then,
because
or the
because he's
women
been a reader. He's not on the spiritual
leader.
path, but he's an
Mm,
avid reader.
mm,
He has My father has read I don't know how many books in his
mhm,
lifetime up to now, and he continues to purchase books, gift people books. And one of the beautiful qualities is that whenever he gives you a book, he will always write something that is absolutely heart-touching on the
mm,
first page of the book. And for
mm,
me, this old school charm and the kind of intention it comes with is just so precious.
wow.
So many of my life lessons are actually what my father wrote on the first page of a book. So
Wow.
many of my life lessons,
Mm,
you know.
mm,
So when it comes to
mm,
sexuality, I would say
mm,
that my father was the one who kind of he didn't directly converse with me, but he gifted me the books and he gifted me, the different resources that I could understand about sexuality from a young age. So I was 14 when I started to get super curious about sexuality.
mhm,
And I'm sure that that's pretty much the age for most kids, 13, 14. But it's so like shush, shush. It's like the two things we know for sure that we all emerge from sex and we're all gonna die. These are the two things we avoid the most. And
exactly.
and that and that's unbelievable. So, and both things I can have a conversation with
Mhm,
my father about.
mm,
Both things, sex and you know the origin, just the dissolving the origin and beyond. It's the same. It's source. It's the same. It's the desire for the same thing. And so I think navigating sexuality in an Islamic country when I was living in Oman for 17 years was probably not that easy. I was curious, But when you're young and you're a teenager curious about these things, it's so easy for people to shame you about it.
Yeah.
It's so easy, especially if you're in a country which already has a very quiet, with a country that's very quiet on the topic. So for me, it wasn't easy. Of course, like a young girl, I had boyfriends and like I wanted to experience things and all of that. And, we'd meet in safe spaces and, you know, I experienced all of these tiny things. But it wasn't till I actually came back to India that I then started to realize I belong to a land that sees sexuality as divine. I
Mm,
belong to that land.
mm,
So everything that's coming in the way of me being able to see sexuality as pure, as divine, as the most important part of human creation, I need to start taking those veils off.
mm,
So deep practices began, the initiation into different journeys, into different uh, practices, reading different books, visiting different ashrams and temples, and just on my own path, and then
mm,
meeting gurus and teachers on the way, and studying, with somebody here, and then studying with somebody here, and then moving on up till I started doing my graduation and did my graduation in Buddhist philosophy, and then just kept on going from one thing to another till I realized that once you've done the work, once you've met the real wisdom, I feel like sex even stops to be like a, how do you say? It's not even such a kind of topic for me anymore. Uh, it's so simple, you
mm,
know.
mm,
And I feel like the obsession, you and remember how you said how everything's about sex.
mm,
I feel like in a world that we live in, where there seems to be this obsession about sex, is I feel like that obsession also exists because we haven't actually touched the depths of it. We
mm,
haven't actually, reached the depth of what sexuality can be. And that's why we seem to be obsessed because we're chasing the surfaces. And you will never feel that sense of deep satisfaction till you keep chasing surfaces, touching one surface and then the other, because inside you deeply know that there's something much, much deeper.
mm,
So it's interesting. It's been an interesting journey from not being able to really understand how to tap into sexuality.
mm,
But then having that space of the texts that I was given at 14, they started to make sense in early 20s,
mhm,
Because at 14, I was not equipped enough to really understand what the Kama Sutra was saying.
mm,
And one of the most beautiful things that the Kama Sutra says is that, we have the Purushartha system, which is the system of like, the dharma, the artha, the kama, and the moksha.
mm,
Dharma being your religious and philosophical duties and, religious duties. Then artha is the way that you kind of exchange your energy with commerce and other things that you do, your skills, etc. And then with Kama, you have pleasure, and then with Moksha, you have liberation. And one of the most beautiful things that the Kama Sutra says is that anybody who masters Dharma, Artha, and Kama will never be a slave of the senses.
mm,
And imagine the depth of what they're saying here. They're saying that you have to master even pleasure to not be a slave of pleasure.
mm, mm,
And I feel like that's what we're missing in
mm.
like in the Instagram world, in the Insta dating world, and everything being so quick. There is no space to master pleasure.
Mm,
So I truly believe when we actually recognize that dharma, spiritual duty, skills and what you do in the world in a material way, and pleasure are actually interlinked, and you start noticing that each part mastering each part is only going to make you stronger, more self-willed, aligned, and more connected, then you'd probably stop chasing the high that comes along with, oh, let's do this, and then let's do that, and then let's jump to this, and then let's jump to that.
mm,
So for
mm,
me, sexuality has never been a chase for desire. And that's actually been something since I was really young.
mm,
I'll be very honest with you, I don't even care much for like orgasms. I find them a bit, and of course, everybody loves an orgasm, but I find them a bit predictable, in the sense that it can happen. But on the other hand, when sexuality is seen through the worldview of it has the potential to transform me, that is something that I'm more interested in. I'm less interested in the pleasure that comes from sexuality because I don't. believe sex is necessary for pleasure. You could have
Exactly.
pleasure in your life in like thousands of ways,
Mm,
infinite
mm,
ways. You could be living a life full of pleasure.
mm.
But at the same time, I feel like sex is often something that we're running after for pleasure. Whereas sex is something, it can be that, but it is much more than that. It's alchemy. It's the fire that you can completely see yourself in, naked, vulnerable, your the lies, your shadows, your truth. And for me, that's really what the discovery on the sexual path has been. It's been like
Mm.
recognizing that through sex, one can truly, truly transform.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, so beautifully put. I I always share that like sexuality had this cycle. And yes, one just the way you mentioned also beautiful, like pleasure is one aspect or one phase, but
Mm.
really like the sexuality, the power of sexuality, the tool of sexuality is there to heal, to restore this relationship with our body, with the senses, with the mind, with our stories. It's that incredible tool that we have available through the gift of this incredible body that we have been given, that we can return to our essential wholeness. And that's the depth that everyone is missing and longing for, and somehow knows that it's there, but doesn't know how to get there.
Yeah.
And then the empowerment that you get, like so the healing, the pleasure, and the empowerment to return to that Shakti that is innate in us, that power that we don't need, we can have and be with whatever or whoever we want to be, but we have like the capacity to fulfill ourselves with what is here. Mm. And that empowerment is what we're having available here, and through the tool, like all these somatic tools, the rituals, it's so wonderful. We just remember. It's a remembrance. It's not even uh, a new knowledge. It's just once you come back to the body and holding yourself and being with yourself and touching at the first time, like so many of my students say, it's so weird. Are we really going to do this now? And we're going to self pleasure together. And then it's this moment of like, oh my God. And then, oh my goddess. And then, boof, like the tears. And then the remembrance. That's what we've always been doing. And that's why it's been shamed and projected onto. Because if everyone would come back to that relationship, to the power of our bodies, we wouldn't need the beauty industry, right? And the fashion industry and the food
Exactly.
industry and the supplement industry. Mm.
Oh my God.
They are
This is
making very sure that we are not getting in touch with that
yeah.
innate power
Yes.
that is there. And
And
it's the magic, right? Like that other part that I always love to add is that we can use our sexuality and the orgasmic power to manifest and the life that we
absolutely.
really desire, and not from a place of guilt and shame, but from a place of fullness and gratitude and joy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm, mm,
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. It's really a very it can as much as it can destroy us, because
mm.
when we don't understand something, that's when it can destroy us.
Yeah.
If we really understand it and we understand how pleasure moves, how these cycles move in the body, where these desires come from, what's behind these desires. I feel even what we receive from sex and what we can give through sex is highly dependent on how we see it, is highly dependent on what's even happening here, you know? So one of the things that I often hear inside the communities that we're in is, oh, get out of the mind, get into the body, get out of the mind, get into the body.
Mm,
And, considering I'm a body worker, I believe that. I believe in being in the body.
mm,
But at the same time, it's also when there isn't alignment between the mind and the body
mm.
that we keep chasing. We keep chasing because it's the body that's always wanting something. It's like
Exactly.
wanting to be touched, wanting to be loved, wanting an orgasm, wanting attention. And I feel like it's so important to realize when it's time to come into the body and
Mm,
when it's also time to align with the clarity of the mind. You
yeah,
know, they
absolutely.
both have to, the true union is actually between this and this, you
Mm,
know?
mm,
That's where union and alignment is due to happen, you know? And then, I've seen some of the most paradoxical things in today's world where people will say, oh, there's no love in today's world, nobody loves. And then they will still go sleep with someone and then never message or call them back.
Mhm,
Or they will still
mhm,
be in a relationship with somebody and cheat on them.
mhm,
And then we talk about how there isn't love in the world. And I'm like,
mhm.
aren't you responsible for creating love in the
That
world?
love, exactly. Mm, mm,
We're so much of because so much of our interaction is with what we see like this. It's all the gaze is already external. The gaze isn't as much internal.
mm,
So I feel like maybe that balance between the eyes being on the outside, but the eyes equally being on the inside. And not for people like us, because we're also like in these spaces, and I'm sure that, we're also trying to embody that in our life as much as possible. But when I look at people on the streets, regular folks who are not in these spaces, I feel like their lives are dominated by what is on the outside.
mm, mm,
Dominated,
mm,
you know, by the
mm,
stimulus, by the malls and the brands and and all the things that cinema sells to you and the industry sells to you. And there isn't much time to
mm,
actually draw that attention inward.
mm, mm. Yeah, it's a choice.
Yeah.
It was really the decision I'm gonna not follow what is popular. And I love to call it like the maverick lemmings, the maverick ones that are not following and falling off the cliff, but instead of like questioning that which is popular and saying there must be more. Like life cannot be meant for just sense gratification. And at one point, like, if it's through a catastrophe or a tragedy, like at one point everyone will wake up. Isn't that what the Vedic teachings also
Yeah.
offer us? Like we can't push someone who doesn't want to wake up or change. Like, and so if you are in a partnership or in a relationship and you're trying to change the other person, to see you, to understand you, to make love to you in a certain way, and they don't want to change because it triggers all their insecurities, like that's
Mhm.
where we then get to say like, okay, I love you, and I know you're doing the best you can, and what I can is now being with myself and give myself what I want from the world, and then that's where the spiritual journey starts, like taking that responsibility and taking the reins, like, okay, the world is not here to make me happy, and it has not even the capacity to do that.
Yes, it's
It doesn't have the
absolutely,
capacity. Mm.
absolutely true.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's you feel it's right now like the sacred sexuality and the sensuality is this your main offerings? Because you also have brought in like you were a belly dancer for a long time and in the body work and how are you now bringing this all together and what is your vision when your mother said that she wants to support your vision?
So one thing that's becoming super clear for me is that, you know, sexuality is actually the base or the foundation. And it could be something that is super, it could be something that is just you engage in sex just momentarily, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, or to have sex, all you need is two body parts, right? You just need body parts to have sex. But what I'm concerned with is less about my journey at the moment, and even with the journeys that I take women on at the moment, is less about the coming together of two body parts. It's less about the physical union with somebody, but it's more centered around deeply understanding and becoming aware of our own bodies, but not from a way of only, oh, this feels pleasurable or that feels pleasurable. Of course, these are all things that women need to understand about their bodies because their pleasure hasn't been at the center or the focus for such a long time. So, yes, this, of course, educating them about their bodies, but really looking into where belief systems are stuck in the body and really looking into where they're blocked, but that not necessarily even from the standpoint of engaging in sex with somebody, but really understanding in what is stopping women from living authentically. So even the body of the work that I do with embodied sensuality is a lot about feeling, because you see the work the words, even the Latin root of the word sensuality or even sensitization is the same word, sensus, which means to feel. And so my interest is in bringing women back to feeling, because so much of what women have been fighting for in the form of feminism, for equal rights, And that's so important for all the women that struggled on this path before us, so we could have all these things, the right to vote, and when we're talking about being paid at work, and a lot of the women are fighting for these things. But at the same time, the journey of comparing ourselves to men for such a long time, like keeping men as the benchmark of they can do that, we can't do this, they have that, we don't have that, has really taken women away from who they authentically are. And the best way for a system to disempower a woman is to disempower from her senses, her ability to feel. Because when you disconnect her from feeling, you disconnect her from intuition. Because intuition is deeply, deeply connected to the senses. It's deeply connected to the now, to 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 the body, to feeling. It's less of an intellectual thing. Clarity is intellectual. Intuition is more bodily, more sensual. It's something that you are able to tune into through the body. So with the work that I'm doing, it's less at the level of educating women, oh, how to find your dream partner, how to create these kind of tantric rituals together. I believe that so many people enter into spaces, and that's kind of like the first thing that's given to them. And I've been in spaces like that you step in, nobody's talking about when you lost your power, nobody's talking about the voices in your head, nobody's talking about what stopped you. But instead it's okay, now let's look at the masculine as the divine masculine and the feminine as the divine feminine. Yes, it's an important part of the work, but it comes after you first recognize your humanness.
Mm.
You recognize where you've been hurt, where you've been disappointed, where you've been rejected, where you have felt violated. And of course, the spiritual awakening to realizing that nobody can bring you, nobody can make you or break you, comes much after that groundwork. So in a country like India, my love, because it's my work seem, I mean, I am traveling to Europe and other parts of the Western world to do this work as well, but I'm purposefully at the moment focusing my attention on the work in this part of the world, India, China, the Middle East, because this is where it's been more shush shush.
Mm.
It's been, and even though these beautiful teachings, they come from the land of India,
Mm.
I will have women ask me questions like, oh, so I can ask my man to give me foreplay for longer? I was like, what? Of
Mm.
course. So you see, it's not the question that needs the work first. Communication to the man that, hey, baby, could you spend more time with my body? That's not the thing that needs work first. The groundwork is first understanding what the woman lost to reach a place where she couldn't believe she could even ask that question.
Mm. Mm.
So, with the embodied sensuality work, I would say it's less around creating a sexual reality. That's for students who've done more intense work and more
Mm.
deep work with me.
Mm.
Don't start them on that path immediately, because
Mm.
then it also gets very externalized, because sexuality can be such an externalized thing for people. Oh, I feel pleasure till someone's doing it for me,
Mm.
or sex is about meeting the right guy. Oh, why do men always do this? And you can see these debates are happening in the world everywhere. Misogyny is being sold to men, and with women it's so much like, I don't need a man anymore, reject men, don't focus on men. But there's such a difference between putting your attention to rejecting men versus getting in touch with what it means to be whole,
Mm.
what it means to be full. So the work that I'm sharing in the Asian part of the world right now, in places where they've been so closed up about it,
Mm.
even though Taoism comes from China and Kama Sutra and Tantra comes from India,
Mm.
you still see the most closed minds in
Mm.
these countries.
Mm.
At the same time, you also see the most adaptive and easily shifting minds in these countries. It's so
Mm.
interesting.
Mm.
So they're so closed, but they
Mm.
also are so ready to be transformed.
Mm.
You know? That's the beauty of the Asian mind.
Mm.
It's been so suppressed. But because we've been in touch with this wisdom before,
Mm.
it's easier to come back to it. So
Mm.
teaching this work in Europe is so different, because you can see that women get triggered so easily.
Mm.
And when you do this work in India, there are triggers, but it's almost like it's a coming back. And they're like, no, but I've known this. This comes from my land. I
Mm.
know this. Somewhere inside me, I know this.
Mm.
So I'm kind of doing the groundwork. I want to be
Mm.
very honest about
Mm.
that I feel like so much of that groundwork is missing in the way that we're relating, in the way that we're building relationships, in the way that we're engaging in sex, in the way that we are falling in love or even loving ourselves. So for me, I'm really more concerned with the sexual, the sensual, the emotional, but from a perspective of understanding what blocks us first.
Mm.
And so to do the groundwork there, and then we can open the path to what it means to build conscious relating, conscious intimacy, conscious sexuality, sacred sexuality with another person.
Mm.
But most of these women doing the work are ending up with fuckboys. So where is the conscious going to be developed out of that?
Mm.
It's not going to be developed out of that till the women don't become fully accountable and responsible for their work and aren't able to witness what they see in the front and also invite into a different reality. Um, I feel like the work's going to stay half. And in the same way, I also feel like men need to do this work because that's how union's going to happen.
Mm.
Shakti may be the energy that brings Shiva from death to aliveness. But Shiva is also pure consciousness. So I feel like the job is both ways. And an energy may be the one that invites and awakens everything. But there also has to be the ground to grow the plant in.
Mm.
So this work is important for everybody. And the more we start speaking truth to ourselves about sexuality, about emotion, about relating, we can then meet people and speak our truth to them.
Mm.
Not instead relate with them from a way of, oh, I just need touch, so I'm going to lie and put on a mask now and just say the things that they want to hear so that I can get something out of this.
Mm. Mm.
It seems to be such a problem right now,
Mm.
you know? But instead, really speaking our truth to somebody. And if it doesn't align, it's okay.
Mm.
It's all right, you
Mm.
know?
Mm.
So yeah, it's really the groundwork, my love. It's
Mm.
really, really groundwork of getting in touch with who we are. And also I realized that doing this work in a country like India, and also because of the roots that I come from, I can't see sex just as sex. I'm just not capable.
Mm.
For me, sex is related to emotion. For me, sex is related to my being, to my consciousness, to
Mm.
my spirit,
Mm.
to my connection to life itself. So I cannot separate
Mm.
sexuality from existence. And that's why my way of working through sexuality is also very deeply holistic.
Mm.
You
Mm. Mm.
know?
Mm. Mm. Yes. Without the groundwork, without the fertile soil, none of those seeds will truly sprout, or they may sprout, but then they don't grow into a strong tree or flower, the blooming. And so the groundwork is crucial. And that includes exactly the emotions, understanding the trauma, the wisdom of trauma, the somatic aspect, values, like the dharma
Yes.
that is often also left out in many spiritual schools. It's all about getting what we want instead of
Yes.
really understanding the value of dharma and that we can't
Yes.
override that so that we then
Yes.
can enjoy what
Yes.
we have achieved.
Exactly. Because we keep even like modern spiritual spaces, even they talk about union. They talk about the masculine. When I speak about many of the neo-tantric spaces,
Mm.
they talk about the masculine and the feminine coming together.
Mm.
But the thing that's also sold to them perpetually is, oh, if it's not with this one, it's with the next one. If it's
Mm.
not with this one, it's not with this one, it's with the next
Mm.
one. And if on the spiritual path we do realize what kind of food works for us, what kind of exercise works for us, what kind of temperature, environment, reading, social circles, activities, if that's something that we're becoming aware of, then how is it that we're still staying so blind when it comes to engaging in sexual,
Mm. Because
activities, sexual?
there's so much shame to talk about it, and we believe
Yes,
that we should just know. Like, just the
yes,
idea of
exactly.
getting education in sexuality for many, it's like, what? I need education in sexuality? No, I know how to. It's the most natural thing, so nobody needs to teach me. Right? And in the moment you want to start sharing something, for what can happen is then it triggers those insecurities, like there's something wrong with me because I don't get it right. And so the blockage, the armor, it's the thickest. Like it reminds me of the wall of China. It's like
Yeah,
you just don't
yeah,
go there. The terror, it's too much. And that's why that
Yeah.
groundwork and the gentleness and creating that safety, it's first and foremost that gets to be offered and curated
Yeah.
for anyone to dive into those deeper
And and
layers.
I've also learned this the hard way by being in spaces where I checked into my body and said, yeah, okay, there's some great things here. There's some things that are interesting and like they're helping me also, but also because my relationship to sex wasn't one of shame, you know? It's like shame actually starts in your family, and considering it wasn't something that started in my family,
Mm,
on the other hand, it was really supported by the first man in my life, who's my father. I
mm,
don't think that my relationship to shame was similar to many women I meet. And so
mhm,
when I entered these spaces, I was like, I don't think this is the way that we're going to build really the cushion and and I may be sounding like, oh, it sounds maybe sounding like I'm somebody who's like seeking safety. It's not about seeking safety, but even when we do a practice with somebody, I feel, and that's how I do my trainings and go deep into my, embodiment trainings. And I'm starting to work on a women's embodiment facilitator training next year, where even when you are doing a practice with another woman, when you are holding space for another woman, you now step into the form of Shiva, you
mm,
know?
mm,
So many times we are also neglecting and avoiding that we have both. We have the ability to hold and
mm,
we have the ability to move through. So inviting both of these at the time that it's required is so important.
mm,
So what is the breath? What is the nervous system of somebody that holds space?
mm,
What is the nervous system and what is the breathing and what is the bodily wisdom of somebody who holds space? But so many times we're holding space or asking people to hold space for people when they don't have the nervous system to go with it.
mm,
Like, and that ends up triggering them more. It ends up bringing up their stuff that they're not ready to, bringing their stuff that makes them not ready to contain the other person.
mm,
I feel like we're actually rushing into space holding. We're rushing into, oh, I've learned this in 7 days. Now I can teach that thing
mm,
too quickly
mm,
without having been on a spiritual path, really deconstructing my own spiritual values. And I feel like you said very rightly, that's where we're getting into the aspects of sex and let's engage in sex, let's meet more people, let's go to neo-tantric spaces without what is dharma, what
mm,
is my what is my spiritual philosophy,
mm.
where do I stand, how do I see a woman, how do I see a man? We don't have this is completely missing,
Exactly.
completely missing,
Mm,
and
mm,
that, I mean, without judgment, I don't want to call it out in a way that's negative, but it
mm,
breaks my heart.
mm,
It's hurtful in some way where we're told that that comes first, and get into that we need to declutter the shame and we need to declutter the guilt, and we start need to moving our bodies and breathing chaotically. All lovely for catharsis, amazing tools, beautiful. But what about first working on the philosophical mindset? What about doing that work together?
mm,
So yeah, this is what my experience with it has been, and
mm,
that's why my vision and purpose with it is, like you asked me, is to really do the groundwork with
mm,
women.
mm,
I love men. I do not reject men because I come from, and I've had a great role model of a man in my life,
mm,
better than my father has played a role. He's wanted me to liberate sexually, but almost every man I've been with has actually wanted to contract me sexually, you know? So it's a completely different um, perspective than probably most people, many people. Um, so for me, the vision is really because I am biologically in the body of a woman.
mm,
My purpose and vision at this moment in time, and I can feel it expanding from here, is to really support women to understand that their spiritual path doesn't look and feel the same as the masculine spiritual path.
mm,
And that's really what I'm committed to at the moment, where
mm,
women can realize that
mm,
it doesn't look and feel the same way.
mm, mm, mm,
And I feel like, a lot of times male gurus will say, "Oh, but spirituality is not of the body. It's of the spirit, it's of the soul." Especially something that you will hear in India that, how can you distinguish spirituality on the basis of the body? Because spirituality is of the spirit, of the soul. And then I wonder, when women on their period want to enter temples, at that moment, spirituality becomes of the body.
Mm.
It's no more of the soul. So women also need to awaken and realize that their spiritual path cannot be dictated by the biology of a man. Not. And that's what we have stayed in such darkness, believing that the only way to learn about the spiritual path
It's
is through the
romance.
male guru.
Mm.
This is what you see in India. This is what you
Yeah,
see in India.
yeah.
All the famous so-called spiritual gurus are men.
Mm. Mm.
And women are, and I know women who've spent years studying with male spiritual gurus
Mm.
only to then realize, I don't know, it's not resonating with me anymore. I'm like,
Mm.
because you're honoring your spiritual path,
Mm. Mm.
which is different than a man's. Not right or wrong, but
Mm.
different.
Exactly.
Even the Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between two men.
Mm.
So when Krishna is speaking to Arjun and he's saying that, they're on the chariot and he's saying these are the five horses and they depict the five senses and you need to draw the senses inward. We also know how the masculine spiritual path is so much about drawing that seed, drawing that energy upwards. But as the feminine, literally life force and nourishment flows outside of my body. So it's like saying that I can be a mother and I can draw my senses inwards. Really, if you drew the senses inwards, how would you nourish and raise the man who can one day get up and say, draw the senses inwards? The woman's senses are not inwards in the same way as the man. They are actually outwards. This is why the minute the child cries, even without touch, the breasts start pouring out milk
Mm. Mm.
because the senses are not inwards, they're outwards.
Mm.
Nourishment implies outwards.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
think it's like
that's
many texts. The Bhagavad Gita has been mistranslated by many. Right? So there are many mistranslations of the Bhagavad Gita because
yes,
if the
absolutely.
Bhagavad Gita would be really interpreted the way that it's meant to be, right? It's then we wouldn't have this confusion that is out there in the world.
But
Mm.
even if it's whatever interpretation it is
Mm.
still a conversation between two guys.
Mm.
And I come from this land, and I
Mm.
say it with due respect
Mm.
that women have been minus. We don't know of one spiritual text in the mainstream that comes from a woman.
Mm.
And this is whether you talk about the witch hunt of women or whether you talk about it somewhere in another way. I stand on this fertile ground, this spiritual land,
Mm.
and I still see it happening to women through the years, even on the spiritual path.
Yeah.
So the texts that you will often find about spiritual women are more about their lives and less about what they really have to say.
Mm. Yeah, they lived experience, the felt sense lived experience.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And of course, I also understand the feminine
Mm.
path is not about power. That's why so much of this has also gotten lost
Mm.
because it isn't about chasing power,
Mm.
but women are subscribing to the path in many ways set by patriarchy, set by the masculine, and losing and completely disconnected but from that's why women are always chasing the love of a man. This is why
Exactly.
that chase exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
The chase exists because she is not fully herself.
Mm.
She
Mm.
doesn't even know she can be because the system
Mm.
never taught her that.
Mm.
My mom was never told,
Mm.
or like, a woman in my lineage may have never been told. I mean, my mom still went on the path of sannyas, but
Mm.
women were not told, you are yours.
Mm.
You belong to you. And you must love and nourish from that space, not from emptying yourself. And so that's where I think we've gone wrong in
Mm.
making women feel like they always need to compete with men on the spiritual path, on the financial path, on the physical path. But we are not in competition.
Yeah. But so many
We
women
are
are like that's what even the mothers are competing at school who had the bigger birthday cake and who put more effort
yes,
in creating the birthday parties and like that competition it's ingrained and that's exactly where the dharma comes in that first
yeah.
As soon as I compete, I'm in himsa. I'm partaking in the violence. And there's
Yes.
no progression in any way if I don't begin to see each other as contributors. Yeah, it's so beautifully put.
It's beautiful to see how we're evolving in certain ways.
Mm,
It's also heartbreaking to see how we're not in certain ways.
mm, mm,
And I
mm,
feel that
mm,
that comes from the disconnect from esoteric wisdom, spiritual wisdom.
mm,
And not in a way that you have to be able to, speak the language or say the mantras. I know so many people who struggle with the language, for example, but really spiritual values, which
mm,
doesn't need you to chant mantras, but
mm.
spiritual values. You can chant a mantra, but you can't communicate with a person.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
It's not making
yeah.
sense. It's stopping to make sense.
Mm. And if somebody would ask, okay, what are spiritual values? It's as simple as they're simply universal values. So if somebody
Yes.
doesn't consider themselves as spiritual, these are universal. Like the value of all value, ahimsa paramo dharmaha, like to choose what is least hurting. So if in the communication I say you're a motherfucking asshole, that's not the least hurting. Like I'm hurting myself
Yes.
because there is no other than myself ultimately
Yeah.
through those words or the actions, and that's exactly where it begins, through
And,
discovering the
and
value of those
you,
values.
you you may say the words, how many of us have never said a foul word to somebody? I have, like, I've surely said foul words to somebody, but also recognizing or aspiring to be at a space where you don't need to communicate like that.
No, exactly.
Yes. We don't need, we may, because, we feel like I need to be heard. I need to say what I need to say, but also having enough spaces that show us that there are other options, that
Mm,
I can communicate in other ways.
mm,
So I really feel like the way that we're expanding in our evolution is kind of bringing us to a space where we have to do really basic level work now. This is kind of like
mhm,
what I'm seeing.
mhm. Yes.
I feel like the things that you see on Instagram or the things that you hear
Yeah,
from your friends,
yeah.
it almost feels like, how people are talking about the quote unquote bare minimum. I feel like we don't even know how to tell another person, hey, okay, we slept together, but I feel like the energy didn't resonate with me and I don't want to hurt you. Uh, but it just didn't feel right to my body. Like, I feel like we don't even have the words to say that.
No, we don't. No.
And that's why the things like crumbing and ghosting and all of these things that
Mhm,
you hear about, like in modern language,
mhm,
exist because we
mhm.
don't have the ability to say, I'm sorry, but that
No.
isn't working.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
yeah.
You know?
Mm,
So for me,
mm,
I feel like that groundwork has become more important than going into a lot of these pseudo spaces. I mean,
mm,
it's the way I feel right now. And I'm
mm,
saying it with a lot of love, not saying it, I'll never raise a finger at anybody, but
mm,
I've gone through it and I'm speaking from the inside.
mm,
I'm speaking from going through that experience that I had to look at myself and go like, is this going to make me a better person? Because how can I separate sexuality from the way that I'm living my life? I'm only going to offer sexual experience to myself and to the other on the basis of the way that I'm living my life.
Yeah, becomes a reflection, a sacred mirror
Yes,
of
yes,
our values, of our.
of values. Thank
Mm,
you for pointing that out again
mm,
because
mm,
we're not talking about that, you know?
mm,
We're talking a lot about beliefs.
mm.
I believe this, I believe that, but beliefs are always yet to be tested in some way, you know? Whereas
And they
values
change.
and they change. But values are kind of like your non-negotiables, things that you
Exactly.
would define your life by, the kind of the tools
Mm.
that define how you act in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're not doing value work. We're not really getting to the depth of these values. We're not getting to the depth of what do I really stand for?
Mm,
And so flaky people are having flaky experiences because so much of what we're seeing is flaky. It
mm,
doesn't stand on a ground.
mm,
That's why this is so. Before we even, and you asked me about whether sexuality was
mm,
the person I was working with, I realized on the path of actually opening up those spaces to sexual dialogue that there's something missing
mm,
foundationally at the root, even before we
mm,
can go into the.
mm. Jema, Jema. Wonderful. Well, I know we could continue for another couple hours, and let's do that next time you come to Bali and do the podcast with my dear friend Bari and continue. There's so much juiciness and depth and wisdom coming through. Is there anything you feel like you want to offer before we close this conversation?
I feel like the only thing is like to to know that if you are deeply committed to your own spiritual path,
Mm,
recognize, because in times like this, it's important to recognize that that isn't going to be somebody else's.
mm,
So just like taking a moment to recognize that my spiritual path is mine and it's going to present itself to me.
mm,
And
mm,
in the journey of seeking that and the journey of embodying that, it doesn't need to be informed by every second piece of information that I see in the external world.
mm, mm,
Slowing down is part of the spiritual path. And slowing down requires discernment. It requires not quickly accepting everything you hear and you see, and not quickly rejecting, and not drawing conclusions quickly, and not making judgments quickly. That's what slowing down is. For most people, slowing down would mean like sitting, laying back, and having coconut water, but
mm.
still very quickly making judgments. So I feel like the spiritual path is about slowing down, and that's where discernment grows out of.
Mm, mm,
But that slowing down
mm,
is an internal thing. It's not about what you do on the outside. It starts internally,
mm,
you know?
mm,
And they both, internal and external, they start to mirror each other when we become deeply aligned.
mm,
So yeah, I think that
mm.
that's just something we all must believe in. And the same applies for sexuality.
Yeah.
Carving our own
Slowing down.
voices,
And when you
judgment.
slow down, like I like to call it the orgasm of relaxation, because then you
Yes,
don't need to make any orgasm happen, which I also want to really point out. There's nothing wrong with any kind of
yes,
orgasm, because that's also such
absolutely.
a hype, right? The differentiation between the clitoral orgasm and the cervical orgasm. And that's
Absolutely.
also like, and I understand where it comes from. Of course, there is a different mirrored and spectrum of
Blossoming. Yeah,
blossoming and wonderful. But again, like the value and how we say it, and to make sure that we really look at all the experiences and here now the orgasms, but also in terms of spiritual experiences. And the truth is, every experience is spiritual. There is no non-spiritual experience. So it's even funny to call it a spiritual experience, but what people refer to an spiritual experience, like it's the moment of the discovery that I'm love or one with God. And the ones that are painful, we don't label them until we do as a spiritual experience. But basically, like all orgasms are sacred. And then they're the ones that you can make happen. Wonderful. Thanks goddess, we can make them happen. Like doing child labor, and you want to just like prepare yourself for that moment. But then there's the orgasm that happens, and like that orgasm of relaxation where there's not the explosion or the volcanic eruption, which is wonderful and magnificent, but just the
yes.
ecstasy, the simplicity of
Nothing,
being
nothing to prove, nothing to achieve in that moment. It's like I'm okay with it as it is,
as it
you know?
is. And there's
Yeah.
the sweetness, like the madhuness,
Ah,
just like, oh,
I
yeah,
agree
yeah,
completely.
yeah. Oh, thank you, Meher, so much. We're gonna post the links to your programs. You have one new one, I think, the Embodied Sensuality right now. Do you want to share something about it, and anything else you want to share, how people can join you and meet you?
Yes, I've just launched a beautiful program. It's a 21-day to embodied sensuality, which is for women to try out things from the just being home, relaxed, slowing down, going into those practices, very beautiful practices to help us connect more with the body, with the hips, with the breasts, with emotion. And the link is in my link tree in my bio on Instagram, and people can always connect with me on Instagram. I'm called meher.juicymama, and that's where people can connect with me.
Juicy mama. Yes, to all the juicy mamas. Oh, lovely. I love it. That's also a topic I look forward to discussing with you. I'm sure you have a lot to say about the idea that we're not juicy anymore as mamas, and the change of body and the fear that comes along with it. And so next time, stay tuned. Thank you everyone for listening, watching. If you like this episode, please like it. Please share with us your what touched you. If you want to share it with your family, it means so much to us. And we see you next time. Jema.
Yeah, Ma.
Devi Temple is my virtual altar. It is where you join an incredible community of people that have a deep value for spiritualizing their life and discovering the true purpose of life, which is freedom, and also live a life that is free. The Devi Temple is where I teach weekly the Vedic teachings, as well as do I host monthly Devi Temple experiences where you get to come to the altar, come to the temple as you are, and connect to the divine and invoke the qualities and energies that are always within us and in this creation. I want to take this opportunity to invite you warmly to the Devi Temple. That is our virtual altar. It is a membership that you can join at any time and meet an incredible community of souls that have a deep value for Dharma, to spiritualize their life and bring meaning and sacred beauty into their life and into their relationships, and see that life is to be celebrated. And it is where we meet every week for the Vedic teachings that I unfold, the teachings that give freedom, that help us see that we are lovable as we are, that we are the source of security and happiness, and everything that we want is already here. It is a mirror in the form of words, and guided by my 20 years of experiences and living in a Vedic culture, it is my deepest honor and privilege and joy to share these teachings on a weekly basis. There we also chant together, we meditate, and once a month we have the Devi Temple experience where we connect to the field, which means there is no structure, there is no really a curriculum. It's simply you come as you are, and then we meet and we connect to the temple energy. And there we invoke the priestesses and priests and priestess that we are, and invite the different deities, the different energies to come and use us as a vessel so that we can embody the emotions and qualities that we are either wanting to release or either wanting to invoke into our life. We also have monthly sharing circles that we call Devi circles, where you get to share what is alive for you in your life and be in a safe space, in a courageous space, to be seen and held and supported through prayer, through mantras, and by the community itself. In the Devi Temple, you also have access to 700 plus hours of pre-recorded material. It's basically a well of wells of the timeless teachings that includes the teachings of the limitless self. You have access to courses like the Value of Values, Vedic chanting, Shanti prayers, Sanskrit. You have access to the Shakti Awakening course, where I introduce the different goddesses like Saraswati and Durga and Lakshmi and Annapurneshwari, and you will learn mantras, as well as you have access to the Priestess Initiation course and access to many more courses, all the mistress and master classes that I have led. You have access to sex magic and different embodiment rituals. This is an incredible opportunity for you to get to know my teachings, to get to know my community. It is for people who are just beginning, but it is also for people who have been on the spiritual journey for a long time. It is a place where everyone is welcomed as they are. It is a sanctuary. And the great thing is you can join from anywhere in the world because it's all happening online. From my heart to yours, deepest gratitude for your presence. May you follow your wildest dreams, live your highest purpose, and expand into the infinite, because that's what you are.